What's going on, guys? Another Nittany Nation Instant Reaction podcast. As always, recruiting analyst Eric Lammers joins the pod. Eric, this kind of big news for Penn State just kind of came out of nowhere. Conrad Hussey out of St. Thomas Aquinas, Florida, has verbally committed to Penn State, and he's their 11th commitment in the We Are 23 class. Tell me a little bit about how this one just kind of came about.
There you go. Keep the good times rolling in the month of April. And you know what? We hit the over on our 3.5 commits that we called back in late March for this time period. So I appreciate Conrad for jumping in the boat today and helping us push along that over there. And obviously this was just one of those things where Conrad had been visiting some schools recently. You know, he made it to State College back on April 9th, 10th weekend. He visits other places. He'd been out to Colorado, been to Pitt, different places like that. And I think ultimately what it was is as he got done with that trip, just kind of realized that of all the places that he visited, Penn State was the place that made the most sense for him. And for Penn State, you know, you're going down into South Florida, a place that they love to recruit. You're going to a national power like St. Thomas Aquinas and getting a guy out of that program, which is obviously always, good to get somebody from there. That just helps kind of establish some sort of pipeline into there. And so, yeah, all around, it looks like, it's a win-win for everybody. And being a little bit, it's a little bit out of left field. I wouldn't say it was completely off the radar, but probably not the one that we had been talking about as somebody that could be close to committing at this point.
Yeah, I know we've obviously been talking about a bunch of different names, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but I want to talk about Hussey a little more. He's listed as an athlete per our database. It sounds like Penn State's taking him as a defensive back, if I'm reading that correct.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's where I would see him at. On film, what you see on film is you see a safety that shows a little bit of range, that makes plays on the balls. He's got a knack for finding the ball in the air, for knocking the ball out when he's tackling the ball carrier. He also I think where the athlete title may come in is he's got he does a good job with the ball in his hands, in particular on special teams when he's returning kicks and things like that. And he shows some, he has run a sub 11 100 before. So, you kind of see that film or that speed pop up on the film when he's returning kicks. And then you can also kind of see that in his range when he's playing that safety and he's coming off the hash and he's making a play on the ball. So I think traits like that are kind of what draws Penn State to him, because you can kind of quantify that stuff with his, his track times and his track long jump and things like that, numbers. And it makes you feel comfortable about taking this guy that's listed as an athlete. But I think it's fairly easy to project him out to be in safety because, again, that's where the film says he's going to go. And that's just kind of where you see some of those attributes, how they can contribute to that side of the ball.
So I know you talked about it before. St. Thomas Aquinas obviously is a powerhouse program. Two things. How big is it to land a kid out of St. Thomas and kind of try to build a pipeline there? And then second, how big is it to beat out Florida and Florida State for a Florida kid?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's big every time you go down into the state and you're going to beat those guys, especially Florida, who's on the come up, obviously, with the coaching change there. And they're making it they're part of their mission really to kind of lock down the borders, I guess, down there in Florida. And obviously now you're Penn State and you went down there and gotten Stokes, and now you get Conrad. So that's, all good there. In terms of getting somebody out of St. Thomas Aquinas, I mean, it's very big. It's something that can be a fruitful pipeline for years to come. When I was at Vanderbilt, we took a kid out of St. Thomas Aquinas every year. And that was because, our head coach at the time, Coach Mason, had a really good relationship with Roger Harriet, who's the head coach down there at St. Thomas Aquinas. And he's, one of the more well-respected, obviously, high school head coaches in the country, obviously just for what he's built down there. And so you get in with him, you get some guys coming your way, Tyler Steen, that transfer lineman that we talked about, previously ended up at Alabama. He was out of St. Thomas Aquinas, and so they have a lot of big time players. They have the big time players, the Bosa brothers are out of there. They have, different guys like that come out of there, but then their whole roster is littered with, guys that can come play at the Division I level. And Conrad's just another long, guy in the long list of that.
Yeah. It seems like they produce, I want to say, like 5+ D1 prospects per year. It's kind of insane, but moving on from Hussey a little bit, because we don't know a whole lot on that situation. I guess we kind of just went over everything, but I want to move on from that. And now we had a couple of surprise visitors this Saturday at Penn State. Tony Rojas showed up unexpectedly. London Montgomery showed up unexpectedly. Are one of these two close, or someone else close? I know we like to do this future cast to end these podcasts, but
I think Tamir Robinson was the one that was.
Tamir Robinson. That's what I meant.
Here was the one that was a little more unexpected, but London was really that one slid under because he had another visit scheduled that we thought he was going on. So I think he's certainly one that we need to keep our eyes on. Talking with sources close to the Penn State program, he didn't commit while he was there on the visit this week, and I can tell you that. So that's when, when we see that Coach Franklin tweet go out today about, we are better, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, did he pop this morning maybe? And, they obviously reach out and confirm that wasn't him. But I do think that, something could happen there sooner than later, just because I think he really likes Penn State. He got back to me after the visit and said, it's fire. He really loves Penn State, this and that, right? And so he's saying all the right things. Again, we talked about it when Michigan got involved and how you probably don't want to lose that kid to Michigan, but now does that, entice him to go visit other schools and go check out, Ann Arbor and things like that. But again, he canceled his visit to West Virginia, it would appear, to go to Penn State instead. And so that just is another positive sign of your Penn State staff and things like that you're tracking. So he's somebody that I like that could potentially be the next one to jump in the boat. Tamir, again, he was a little bit of a shock. But, we'll see. He just kind of he was joking around on Twitter about, releasing a top 5. So, him and like Rojas, those guys are, I think Penn State's right there at the top, if not 1, they're 2, or if they're not 2, they're 1, something like that. But I think both those guys are going to release, these top schools and probably take a few official visits before you can really say that they're going to be the next, in line to commit.
Gotcha. So it sounds like other than the 2 linebacker guys, sounds like we could have a future cast soon for maybe potentially for London Montgomery.
Yeah, I think that one makes a lot of sense, quite frankly. I mean, I was thinking about that last night when I was driving back from Indianapolis, because that's when I learned, I was coming back from the Rivals camp there in Indianapolis, and that's when I learned that he had kind of made it onto campus. And then I started thinking about it a little bit more, and then I talked to him last night, and I'm like, yeah, I think this one just makes a lot of sense. So I think he could be definitely next in line in terms of future cast. Yeah,
definitely. I know we're going a little long on this one, but one last question I want to ask you is about the Indianapolis camp. A couple of Penn State I guess apparel, if you want to call it that. A couple guys with Penn State gloves on. What's all that about?
Yeah, it was awesome, actually. So all of a sudden, Justin Brown shows up, the receiver out of Blackman down here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, shows up. He's rocking some Penn State gloves. He's making plays. And then Amari Snowden, who ended up being the DB MVP for the camp, he was rocking some white Penn State gloves as well. And so that was cool to see both those dudes out there flashing, the Nittany Lion logo, and they both had really good days. And so, yeah, that was cool. And Penn State was a buzz amongst more than just those 2 guys at this camp in Indianapolis. So I think, there's a lot that could come out of that in terms of guys that are on their radar and, guys that potentially, could end up being Penn State and Nittany Lions. So we'll just have to track those guys. But it was cool to watch them, throw up the gloves for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right, guys, that's all we kind of have on the situation. Top 4 recruiting class again in the rankings. Eric, any final thoughts?
I don't got anything right now. Nope. Yeah, we'll be tracking that London Montgomery one, though, close for sure.
All right, guys, stay tuned for more on the Lions Den forum and pennstate.rivals.com, and hit the subscribe button down below, and we'll talk to you soon.